How do you know it's a 78?
Oh, everyone will know. If you
I
don't-
wouldn't.
If you don't learn.
Doesn't say.
So, today we're supposed to talk about good distortion versus bad distortion.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. What's the difference?
Yeah, because everyone thinks distortion is like a negative word. It's like, and it is sometimes, but then it's not other times. And everything distorts.
Generally speaking, you expect if you play a track, if you play music, you expect the output to be exactly what you're playing, right? And so distortion is simply some sort of deviation from the input stimulus. It's something that's different than what you expected.
Change in the signal somewhere
Right.
along the way.
So
that
somewhere along the
isn't
way,
quite the
something
same as what was
caused a
laid down.
problem to where there's a tiny discrepancy between the input and the output. And this isn't always a bad thing. People look at amplifier specifications all the time. They always say, wow, look at this distortion. It's 0.0000001%. And they think it's amazing. And it is from a technical perspective.
Yeah, but
But is that better?
yeah,
Do you
well,
need that?
That's the thing. Like,
What does it matter?
And like I said at the beginning when we started, like there's distortion added all along the chain.
Yeah, it's
which is-
cumulative.
Yeah, right. From the
So-
recording right through to wherever they put it in, right? So
Right.
You want to minimize it?
you want to try to minimize it for sure. And I think everyone does try to do that. But then again, a lot of bands and guitarists add distortion to their instruments.
Yeah, a lot of guitars are
I
distorted.
mean, we just got
on
this
purpose.
100 watt Marshall amp here, and it's got built-in knobs for distortion, right? Pedal effects you can add to it, all this stuff, specifically to distort your instrument, and so that you can create your own sound. So there, you could say those are positive distortion.
Yeah, a lot of people, they don't even like playing without distortion.
Yeah.
It's like, too clean.
Overdrive.
Right.
They just crank all the knobs.
Yeah, right. Make your own sound. So in that case, I guess you can get it. They're trying to be unique, and every knob positions their own spot, their own sweet spot for what they want to sound like. So
It's kind of more or less like resolution to some extent, where in like a digital sense, you might think that the higher the resolution your video is, the better it is. But at some point, it kind of doesn't matter. And a lot of times you're always limited by something else. So if you look at like art as an example, if you increase the resolution, the fidelity, the number of details in artwork, does it make it more artistic? Does it make it more exciting, invigorating? Does it really change its benefit?
I know.
Probably not.
I don't like watercolors myself, so I do prefer oil paintings. So I guess I like a bit more detail, and not that I'm friggin' anywhere near being a critic of art, but I know that I don't like watercolor, and that's pretty blurry edges everywhere on that kind of stuff.
A little bit more refinement on your paintings.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that's fine. We're not talking about painting with a hammer here.
Yeah.
But there's certainly something to be said about not necessarily having every little nuance perfectly defined all the time, because sometimes it can be distracting. You look at photography.
Sure.
Do you always want everything in the picture to always be perfectly in focus? If you're
Usually not.
if you're taking a portrait, for example, a lot of times people prefer the background to be out of focus
Well,
because it's less distracting.
You always play with lenses and f-stops and all that most of the time just to get rid of the background, right?
Well, a lot of the time, yeah.
Yeah, it's so common.
Yeah.
You don't want to see something sometimes because it doesn't matter. It's not relevant.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing that's true. Like if you standard settings on a phone nowadays, pretty much the whole shot's clear.
Well,
It's
that
not
just
like
comes down
pros.
to
Yeah.
the sensor size and such, and what lenses they're running. But yeah.
I'm just saying, like if you were going to do like a portrait, which I guess you
Well,
could
that's
go
why
to-
the portrait modes, they do it digitally.
Yeah, which is cool.
They fake,
Yeah.
physical sensor size.
Yeah, that takes a lot of practice if you were playing with a DSLR with lenses and stuff like that. You get manual settings, you got to know what you're doing
it takes a bit.
a little bit. I mean, it's not difficult once you learn it.
Yeah.
But just saying.
That's the thing that people find attractive. They prefer the look a lot of times of a background that's out of focus because they find it distracting. They find it's not important for what you're trying to capture in that moment. And the same thing could be said about audio. You don't necessarily want 100% perfect replication a lot of times.
So I guess what we're saying is the distortions can actually mask or cover up that detail a
They
bit
can.
in a nice way.
In a pleasing
You
way
know?
that makes it preferred. You can actually like it better.
Some people choose tube amps and tube preamps.
Well, yeah.
You're running
I mean,
a
a
tube
few-
preamp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, some amps are a few percent distortion. And
Yeah.
people actually prefer
And it
that.
sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It adds a more of a what? Like a
Pleasing.
like a euphemism, or it can do space a little for whatever reason, opens up a little bit certain areas of the spectrum. That
Depending on the amp.
solid state tends to be a little bit stiffer and more in your face, and the tubes relax things a little bit and make things more and more enjoyable. And again, the distortion's way higher on almost all tube amps. Like you said, it could be in a couple percent range. Even in the bass, it's worse. And it could be even higher than that. But there's a lot of music that sounds good like that.
I mean, even from the original recording, you had tube microphones and everything.
Yeah, right. You're kind of playing it back the way it was laid down. It was recorded through tubes on a tape, and now you're playing it back through tubes. And
Well, yeah, every step, even to the tape, isn't perfect. That has problems too. But
I think it always comes back to what you're trying to do. If you're trying to listen to music, if you're trying to enjoy it, distortion is not an evil thing. There's a lot of times where it's preferred. People could hear multiple amplifiers, and a lot of times they'll prefer the one that has more distortion.
yeah,
It just depends on where the distortion is, what kind of distortion is, what the rest of the chain looks like.
and to look at coming at that from another direction too is that we've heard a number of electronics that the goal is, from an engineering standpoint, not listening, is measurements. They're trying to minimize distortion, minimize noise, and I mean, how do those things usually sound?
Cold.
Yeah, cold.
Yeah, it sounds like a
Hard.
hospital.
Yeah, you're right.
You know,
Yeah,
so everything's
right.
just like
yeah, it's clean,
not
clinical.
pleasing.
Yeah, right. And I mean,
Right.
it measures great,
Yeah.
but it doesn't play music. So
Well,
Well,
and it's
it
not to say
does.
that's always the case, to be
Well,
clear. It can.
not in a humanly enjoyable fashion, And I think that's the thing where distortions come in, is we are all human, and our hearing is analog, not digital. And because now we're playing back, almost everything is digital. I think sometimes the distortions, like you talked about, masking it. The distortions mask the digital noises or the artifacts and things that occur when you're going from an analog format, which is recording with vocals and voice and instruments, to a digital. That's a conversion to a digital process. Then back from digital back to analog so we can hear it, right? And those conversions are where distortion and artifacts in the digital domain get added into the source and music and through playback, which are negatives. So we're trying to kind of, I think, cover that up a little bit and mask it with nice, pleasing distortions.
I think an important thing to note is that your ears intrinsically are not very linear. There's different gain at different frequencies that are designed specifically to more or less draw your focus to the things that are important, to be able to locate better. So if you have predators chasing you, it's easier to determine what's going on in your surroundings, to draw focus to the things that matter more.
Yeah, this goes back to the caveman days, right?
wow,
Where everyone had to hear a dinosaur coming and run in the opposite direction, not toward the dinosaur.
there were no dinosaurs and humans.
Oh
at
yeah,
the
you're
same
right.
time.
Okay, well, I guess I watched too many shows, but
Woolly mammoths.
yeah, maybe, yeah.
woolly
But whatever the shit is that's going to eat you,
Right, okay.
you want to make sure you're going the other way.
Right.
So yeah, our hearing has been over the what would you call that? Eons.
Yeah.
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it turns out we don't hear perfectly flat.
Yeah.
And everybody's inner ear anatomy is a little bit different and causes a little bit different distortion or gain through different frequency spectrum. So,
And why don't we hear flat?
well, clearly there was some sort of evolutional advantage for that, because it seems to be more or less the presence region that
Locational
attenuated.
cues.
Yeah, it makes
where,
it easier
where stuff's coming from
to figure out
at
where
you.
stuff's coming from.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, like all animals hear differently though.
Yeah.
So like for all probably their own reasons.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And exactly what their specific
Yeah, I
use
imagine a
cases.
tiger's a little different than humans
Yeah.
versus elephants.
Yeah.
I wonder what the elephant hearing is. They got big ears, but they
They-
just flop down.
Well, yeah. I don't know.
Do they have good hearing?
I think so.
They
I'm
say they
pretty
never.
sure
They say
do.
they never forget, but
So that means they have good hearing.
but I don't know what they're not forgetting.
I think they could probably
To
hear
eat.
very low, probably
Yeah.
a lot lower than us. I would think.
Well, actually, don't they communicate with what they're walking or
I
something?
think so.
They feel
Something.
That's a feel. That's a sense. Then no, that's
Yeah.
not really.
Well, snakes do that too, or something like that. I
Yeah.
think.
I
Snakes.
imagine anything that touches the ground that well uses the ground as a. Well, ground's pretty good at low frequency travel. Really low frequency.
Well, and their ears are probably very
Subsonic.
big.
yeah.
It is slightly off topic.
Yeah. Well, no, but I mean, it's evolution. That's what we're talking evolutionary. I mean, we're the same way as humans. I mean, it's millions of years we've,
There was some advantage for the hearing response that we have as humans.
yeah.
But luckily, everybody's used to their own response.
Yes.
Your
So
brain's
it's your
hearing
normal.
through the same ears your whole life.
Yeah, you're kind of born with it.
So
Yeah. In fact, you wouldn't know the difference between my response and yours to us.
well, yeah,
It's kind of like color too, or people are colorblind.
Yeah.
It's always weird that someone says it calls it orange when you call it a red, or different shades of red or
Right.
whatever. And it's like you don't think about it till you get to be until someone tests you.
well, that's the thing. Some
Like,
people
until
they don't
someone
know,
actually-
yeah, because it's like it's
Yeah,
always looked like
right.
that to me.
Looks like
yeah.
red to me. That's what you taught me it is.
Well, how do you
but-
know what red really is? How
That's
do you know
right.
what other people see it as?
Yeah.
You don't. It's
Yeah.
kind of the same thing. Does it really matter? And I think if the goal is musical enjoyment, if you're just listening to music, why does it even matter if there's distortion? If you enjoy it, if you think it sounds better,
Sure.
what's the difference?
Yeah.
If you're not trying to master something, if you're not trying to produce something that's a reference for others, what's the difference?
You see that sometimes on our threads too, like you see on all the threads, where someone will dominate the thread and go, "Oh, that sucks. This sucks. That
Right.
sucks." And it's like, well, maybe for you, I get it, and for us, maybe not.
Maybe.
But for other people, that's where they are. That's what they like for whatever reason, whatever they listen to. So, got to be a little more open-minded sometimes. I think when you have a group of people that are from all over the world and
Well-
listening to all kinds of different musics, and we may listen to here,
That is actually a fair point.
Yeah.
People listen to very different music.
very.
And from our perspective, we go to trade shows and we see various people trying various gear, typically on our headphones. But there's really not necessarily that strong of a correlation as you would expect between low distortion and high enjoyment. A lot of people, if you read on the forums, you would think that's the case. But
Yeah.
over and over, we see people that like amps with more distortion. They like a source chain that has more distortion.
Yeah.
But it's complicated because you can't just put distortion
Well-
in
Yeah,
and make
well,
it sound
yeah,
better.
just add
It's got to be the
distortion.
right distortion. The right
It's
place,
got to be the
amount.
right distortion.
Yeah, very complicated.
Yeah, there's pleasing distortion and then there's annoying
Yeah.
distortions. And it does, by the way, it doesn't take a lot as a
Oh, no,
percentage.
tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can add some third harmonic, which is, whatever. And let's say you added 0.001% to, or even 0.001%, and it just annoys the brain. Your ear just picks up on it,
Well, it's kind of like clipping.
And,
Like a lot of times you run into clipping on portable gear, on lower power portable gear. If you hammer the Von, you'll get a little bit of clipping. And a lot of people are very sensitive to that. They find it very annoying.
Yeah,
And that's a form of distortion, but
sure.
different end result. And a lot of people find it to be very negative.
Yeah.
But some distortions are very pleasing.
Yep.
And so I wouldn't be scared just for something that has a 0.1% distortion. And
Yeah,
that's
it's-
not super amazing.
No, it's about how that distortion sounds with your music, not about the percentage. It really isn't. The type of distortion is critical, and you're never going to get rid of it. So if you're and minimizing it causes other issues like in electronics and stuff with extra feedback and all that.
Yeah.
You can drop distortion, but you also remove the sense of space and openness that the music has. It sterilizes things. It kind of makes sense when you think about it
Yeah, it's a
from a
give-take.
logical standpoint.
Well,
yeah.
if you look at Paul's recent videos, Daryl was talking about designing their new preamp
yeah.
for the gain stage for the
Phono.
turntable, the phono stage.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they were talking about distortion
We're talking about
and how it matters.
PS audio.
PS audio. Yeah.
PS audio, yeah. They had a couple videos on this, and it's kind of interesting to see somebody else.
The designer actually talked about it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and other guys have done this too. Past Labs has learned that through his life that the distortion is acceptable at certain percentages, and each stage should be adjusted for the overall sound of the piece. You don't, to most people, you got a black box called an amplifier, but in it are stages or different gain stages of transistors or amplification. Each one can be slightly tuned and adjusted by people who are in the know, and to get an overall sense of what this sounds, so the thing sounds musical. It measures well and sounds musical, and it's a balancing act. It's a balancing act. You trade off, and you learn this as a designer over time, just like we did with our designing headphones. It's the same thing. All drivers create distortion. All speakers create distortion.
All wire creates distortion.
There's distortions everywhere in the
Everywhere.
chain. So the real issue, the real trick is to, if you're going to have distortions, keep it in a reasonable amount that sounds good. Don't add negative distortion, or the other way to look at it is eliminate the negative distortions and enhance the positive.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what we do, and that's why this.
It's always the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. So, anyway, oh, by the way, we should mention too that these mugs are available at
Abyssstore.com.
Abyssstore.com.
That's right.
It's getting colder out in most of the
You're
U.S.
gonna need a
so-
mug.
Well,
fill
not
it with
today.
hot
Mug.
chocolate.
Yeah, hot chocolate. Yeah.
There you go.
77 right now.
Yeah, Abyssstore.com. I think that's I think that's the best deal on the store. Ain't they like $15? or something?
$15, yeah.
Yeah, it's a
What,
good
it's
deal.
shipping
Plus ship.
$3.99.
Oh,
No, I think it's
oh, they
$4.
do charge you.
It's
Yeah.
a little bit different pricing in
It's still
Europe.
reasonable.
Pretty reasonable, I
Yeah.
think.
Mugs
It's
are.
a fun little mug.
Yeah, it's nice.
Everybody needs a mug,
Yeah, Abyssstore.com.
probably.
Yeah.
Well, if you like that video, feel free to give us a thumbs up. It always helps our channel out. And let us know what you'd like to see in a future video in the comments below. If you have any ideas or suggestions, we'd always like to hear them. And until next time, take care, guys.